Time Super Bowl list is null and void, sir.
We're on a mission, guys.
Put on your life vest, let's drop anchor. Put on your life vest, let's drop anchor.
Andy Dalton.
Put on your life vest, let's drop
Andy
anchor.
Dalton.
Put on your life vest, let's drop anchor.
We're on a mission, guys.
He's so green.
We're on a
That is outstanding for tight end. I really like his upside.
I'm just going to include my list there for time's sake. Oh my God, how long have we gone? We're going to leave the beating weenies aside for right now. Let's get into the main thing everybody wants to hear.
We're on a mission, guys.
And welcome to Belly Up Fantasy Live Dynasty Edition, specifically the Draft Debrief Edition today. So much happened over the past couple of days, and we're here to tackle it all for you, talk about some fantasy relevant stuff, and really start to dive into what this season is going to look like. But speaking of looking like, some things have changed here. We're missing the commish and we're missing Justin. So Justin and the commish are going to be stepping away from this show for the time to be focusing on some other stuff on some other shows and some writing as the season picks up. So I am here with you still. We still have Mr. Kevin Wilson to my right. How are you doing, Kevin? How are you feeling?
I am doing outstanding, Andrew, and we're not going to miss those guys. We're just going to hit the ground running, and we're going to bring on the power here today. That's my prediction.
You're going to start a show rivalry here if you're saying stuff like that day one. And then
That's okay. We can rival. That's fine.
It's all fun. And then we got a new face down here below me, Mr. Chase Thornton, joining the show for the first time. How are you today, Chase?
Getting by. I'm feeling a lot better after the second round the Packers had. So, at first night I wasn't feeling so hot, but, like everybody else, I was waiting for them to pick somebody up to throw to. Now they got it. So I'm feeling better now. I'm recovering from the party festivities for my 2- and 4-year-old yesterday. So ready to do this. Actually start talking about some football.
That does need recovery from a party like that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Let's say I love the background too. It looks like you're sitting like at a legitimate bar.
Yeah, you're bringing it, man. Look at that.
Yeah, this is the Mott and Bailey basement bar. This is my home bar. This has been our project for about the last 2 years. So
it looks like my kind of place. Nice, classy look. I love it.
That way, if I gotta hit it up quick, I can within quick reach.
Around the upcoming sorrows of the fantasy season. I feel
Absolutely.
that.
So, Chase, where are you broadcasting from?
Northwest Wisconsin.
Northwest Wisconsin. We've
Yeah.
been up there one time, so if we ever reach there again, we're gonna have to check this out.
Yeah, I'm about an hour north of Eau Claire. So.
Okay.
Yep, about an hour north of there, hour and a half south of Duluth. It's not a bad location in terms of getting anywhere to do anything. It's just there's not a whole lot here to do unless you're hunting and trapping. So,
well, if you make it up there, Kevin, you're gonna have to do a bar review for us.
Absolutely. How far is that from Lake Geneva?
Oh, from Lake Geneva?
Yeah.
Ooh, it's probably a good 4.5 from Lake Geneva.
Okay.
Yeah, Lake Geneva is down by the Illinois border. So
correct.
And I'm like an hour and a half from the cities or so, from the Twin Cities or so. So
Okay.
Yep.
So what I'm hearing is no bar review after all.
Yeah, that's looking
hopes we're up and hopes
pretty
we're
bleak at this point in time.
Well, we'll shuttle you back and forth.
That's all right.
Make that drive a lot.
Well, we'll jump right into it here because we got so much to talk about today. And we're gonna start in on some of the trades of the guys who are already in the NFL, your AJ Browns, your Hollywood Browns. We're gonna talk about the fantasy impact of some of the other guys around that. So I want to jump right into AJ Brown here because that was a big move for Philly to fill a need for them to bring him in. And I've seen a lot of mixed reviews on how it affects Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. And I mean, the way I look at it, it's another weapon. I don't see how it's a negative for really anybody on that Philly team. But what say you, Kevin?
Well, the key, of course, is that J.A. Brown has to be healthy, which I believe he will be.
Mm-hmm.
And if that being the case, then defenses are going to have to cover him. which I think is going to help Devonta Smith over there. And for sure, this puts Jalen Hurts on the spot, kind of like Tua down there in Miami. He's got the weapons now, and so they're saying, "Okay, we believe in you. Now it's time to go out and do it." And so, if he can't do it with J.A. Brown as a wide receiver, then it probably can't be done. So, I think that this is a boost. Maybe not so much boost for Brown personally, because he had a perfect setup in Tennessee, but I think this is going to work out for Hurts, and I think it's going to work out especially for Smith because now he's going to have single coverage over there. So I like that for both of those guys.
Yeah, the other one I found interesting was that people were saying that they're now lowering the ranking of Dallas Goedert and whatnot, and that one also
That's crazy.
Well, exactly. So the what I saw as a trend for this year's draft, it seemed, was that anytime a team took a skilled player, everybody was immediately crying and lowering the value of the other skilled players on that team. And everyone seems to be forgetting about complementary football and how some guy's style of play is just going to make the other guy even more open or just be able to play a more natural role for them. So I don't see it affecting Goddard at all. I don't see it really affecting anybody in that receiving core. If anything, like I said, I think it allows Devonta Smith to play a more natural role instead, because now AJ Brown can be your deep post guy or your stretching down the field. What do you say, Chase?
Well, that's what I thought when I looked at it. Yeah, like you said, everybody says, "Oh, well, they got this guy, so now their guy that's been their number one or their running back necessarily has to be dropping." I said, I looked at it, and like you said with Goddard is still a top 5 tight end talent. He no longer has to fight with Zach Ertz for targets. Mm-hmm. If you give Goddard Ertz's targets from last year, he's a top 5 tight end. He's a top 5 talent. Those targets for the tight end aren't going anywhere in their offense. They're just not. Hurts isn't going to. He's going to want to run around. He's going to want to throw underneath. Goddard is going to be fine. He's already got that rapport with Devonta Smith. They played together in college. They started growing together last year, both as first-time starters. If you look at it historically too, Brown had about a 19-20% target share last year. And yeah, he was hurt, but when he played, he had about a 20% target share, 19-20. Smith had a 21% target share last year for them. Brown is coming from an offense that was run first, which is what Philadelphia morphed into over the course of the year because they just didn't have the receiving talent to throw as much as I think Sirianni wants them to. But, Brown's coming from an offense where he had about a 20% target share. Whoever was playing his number 2 had about a 20% target share. And his tight end position had about a 20% target share. And then they spread the rest with, fans and the sideline and everybody else that was in the stadium. But he's going to a place now where, again, there's another receiver that can take 20% of the targets. There's another tight end that's going to be taking about 20% of the targets. Out of those 60%, you're telling me they're not going to give a third of them to the best player hands down in their receiver room? I just don't see it. I don't think it's as big a downgrade for Brown as some people think it's going to be. I think that he comes in and is their top dog. Now, it doesn't mean that, and I don't think that hurts Smith's production because if anything, it's going to not. People won't be able to key on Smith to take care of all these other guys, the Arcega Whitesides and Ragers of the world. And the Rager experiment is over. But it has to be over. But I think it's a good move for Philly. I think it's an okay move for Brown. I think he's probably a tight or a wide receiver 2, high 2, low 1 right now until we see otherwise. I think you were probably looking at Devonta Smith as a 3 anyway, and I think he stays at 3 for now until
because so part of it is definitely. I think what hinges Smith and Brown's value is definitely seeing what Hurts is going to be able to do. Now, like you said, they morphed into a run-first team, but they still didn't even have the weapons to really do that because they didn't have that power back. Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, Scott, and Howard. Howard was the closest thing they had to a power back, but he's not the Howard of old. He is old. So it's like I'm personally shocked they didn't take a running back that could have filled that first and second down role for them to be able to let Miles Sanders slide into a more, pass catching role where I think he excels. But as far as Brown goes, so because of that, I think they are going to go back to the pass game more. So like you said, I completely agree with your target shares and the ratio of them being passed around. And yeah, I think Devontae Smith, like you said, now the coverage is going to have to slide over to Brown more. He's going to get more one-on-one coverage, which is going to play to his strength of being able to make his quick moves and find the holes that are in between his cornerback and his linebackers and be able to hit the spot quick. And it's just going to come down to whether Hurts can hit him on the right time.
Yeah, Smith won't have to be contesting his catches as much as he was last year. AJ Brown can be the one to contest catches because he's 8.5 feet tall, and Smith can just get open now. Yeah, Smith can separate, catch it, and go and do what he does best.
Exactly. So then on the other side of this, though, so on the Tennessee side, someone who they got Robert Woods now all of a sudden jumped right back into what we thought was a wide receiver one role, but now they bring in Treylon Burks there as well, who is going to be the perceived top dog wide receiver there, especially with Woods coming off the injury. Tennessee gets really interesting now because, like we said, they are run first, which a lot of Robert Woods' success in LA was that they were definitely pass first over there. So it was a lot of attempts, a lot of opportunities and targets. I'm not sure he's going to see much of the same, especially dropping down to a guy like Ryan Tannehill throwing him the ball. Not loving the outlook of Woods here on Tennessee now. We can go to you, Kevin, this time first. Well, you went first last time, but Kevin, what do you think about Robert Woods?
Well, I personally like Robert Woods a lot, and I had him on my team last year, and of course, unfortunately, he got hurt. And there's a lot of if scenarios in all of this. That this whole show was about ifs. And so if he's healthy, I really think that he's going to step in over there. I'm not buying that the rookie is going to step in and be the number one wide receiver. I'm not buying that. I like
not right away.
If Robert Woods is healthy, he is the top dog in Tennessee to me. And Ryan Tannehill is a little bit of a downgrade as a quarterback, but it's not like he went off the cliff.
Right.
And even though Tennessee is going to be run first, we know that. It's the way it's going to be. But when they do throw the football, I like how these two guys can complement each other out there. And so I think Tennessee is going to be okay.
So what scares me about Robert Woods is, so I agree that I don't think Treylon Burks is going to show up day one and play like the number one wide receiver. I think this is going to be early on in the season. The majority of the targets will go to Woods. One, I don't think he's going to have the same ceiling he had in LA, just because, like I said, the amount of opportunities aren't going to be there. And also, I think down the stretch, when we're looking for these guys that, be clutch for us in the playoffs, that's the part that I think they depending on how their season's been going, that's when they might look a little bit more towards Burks as he's settled in to see what they had in him. That's more so what worries me about Woods, is that is he going to be the same at the end of the season as he was at the beginning of the season? And, you mentioned healthy. He tends to get hurt somewhere around the end of the season anyways, but that's my main concern with Woods, is that I just don't think his ceiling is going to be the same we've seen. I think he'll be consistent like normal. I just don't think he'll have the top end season he's had. What do you think, Chase?
Yeah, he's not going to have the volume, of targets that he had in LA. Even with 36 receivers on the team in LA, they were throwing the ball, and their running backs were always hurt. Coming to Tennessee, I don't think Tannehill is that big a downgrade in terms of a passer. He's mobile. He's not a statue in the pocket necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that, coming to Tennessee, like you said, we thought, oh, great, he could be like a big number one, number two guy. He's not going to see the volume, but early in the year, he is still the top dog. Unless Treylon Burks is somehow Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson 2.3.0, he's going to take some time to ramp up. It's going to take some time for him to get used to the game. That's whether he's a receiver or a right guard or whatever else. It's the NFL. It's a step up. Now we might be changing our tune come week 13, 14, but early in the year, Woods is the guy. Coming off the injury, sounds like he's going to be ready for the beginning of the year. But let's not forget too, though, they signed Austin Hooper. Yes. They brought Austin Hooper in, and that is an upgrade over what
they started on Austin Hooper. I'm not even going to go there as far as I'm not buying him at
he's
all.
an upgrade over Ferkser. I think he's a better
Okay.
receiver than Swaim, and that's a team that likes to use that traditionally has liked to use the tight end. So I don't think Hooper was in the right spot in Cleveland. I don't think they used him right. He was good when they used him the right way. He's one of those guys that has to be in the right situation. He does not have the natural talent to just rise above whatever situation he's in. But he's an upgrade at tight end on a team that likes to use the tight end. Burks is not going to come in and have a giant target share right away. I don't think they might try, but I think Woods' ceiling is probably mid-low wide receiver 2 now, as opposed to being on the cusp of giving you that one value like he could in LA. Burks, I'm not taking Burks as more than a 3 or 4 to start the year at the most, and that's his year 1. That's probably his ceiling.
Yeah, he's someone you look to try to time a trade right in the middle of the season to bring him in. But you beat me to it because I was going to touch on that. So I do want to hear why Kevin is not big on Austin Hooper, because I agree with you, Chase. I think he's going to turn into a great value late in your redraft drafts this year, to where I know this is dynasty, but I do think there's value for Hooper out there to be someone you can get on the cheap. And there's just a lack of targets in general in Tennessee, where they're going to have to throw to somebody, and Hooper's going to be, I think, more close to what he was in Atlanta than Cleveland for sure. So I do like Hooper.
He should see more targets in Tennessee than he ever did in Cleveland.
Yes. Oh, I think so. Agreed. But Kevin, why are you so down on him? What's what?
Well, you talk about how you get burned 2 times, and because when he was in Atlanta, he was okay, but he wasn't great. Right?
Oh yeah, he was great. like your mid. I mean, it's the tight end, but he was probably like a tight end 5 or 6, something like that.
Okay. So then he goes to Cleveland, and I thought, okay, they didn't sign this guy to not include him in their offense. So I said, okay, I'll try it 2 times. And so we saw what happened last year. And so, he could certainly step in over there in Tennessee and be, above average tight end. But it's just not going to be on my fantasy team. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I'm looking at him as a tight end 2 for right now. I'm not looking at him as a starter in any format necessarily. But I'm not going to blame Austin Hooper for Cleveland being Cleveland either. So
no.
his stats might improve just because of sheer volume rather than any kind of talent or fit, or because he's great. But he'll be better. And like I said, that's a team that wants to give 20% of their targets to their tight end. He's going to see some volume there. They're not going to throw as much as some other places will, but that will affect Burks and Woods somewhat.
Nope, I agree. So we'll see how it plays out for Hooper. I think he could be a sneaky starter come the end of the year in most formats.
I think all those moves keep Tannehill on that wide or that quarterback 1-2 no man's land. Kirk Cousin, we're in between.
Well, you're gonna have a game where you'll have games where you're gonna love that you drafted him at the value you did, but then he's gonna have a game where he scores you like 4 or 5 points because it's just how those quarterbacks go.
He'll be a high risk, high reward daily play or something. Yeah, but
great for daily fantasy, exactly, because no one's gonna be looking as well.
All I can say is if you're in the fantasy draft with me and you're behind me and you're wanting to get him, you don't have to worry about me drafting him. So you can be pretty safe in your position that you're going to get him.
Kevin loves putting his strategies out there for all his league mates. All you got to do is watch this show, and you got Kevin. You can predict everything Kevin does in the draft. But so let's get to the other big blockbuster trade that went down to where, look, the Arizona Cardinals offense is looking quite deadly. They bring in Marquise Brown. They already have DeAndre Hopkins. They got Rondale Moore, who everyone has been so high on now for the last year. It's going to allow AJ Green, the aging vet, to kind of slide into every now and then I'm going to show up role. But with James Conner now being the guy there, and then bringing in Trey McBride to get Zach Ertz back to this 2 tight end system he was used to in Philly. I want to get your Chase. Let's get your take first here. How does Marquise Brown fit into this offense? What role do you think he plays?
Well, I said in my article on the NFC West right before the draft came out, I said, you know, they look like they're ready to give Rondale Moore. They want to give Rondale Moore a little more work.
Mhm.
I wasn't necessarily all that impressed with what I saw from him last year. Now, granted, they had Christian Kirk there still, and I don't know. I don't like what they were trying to do with everybody they had. D Hop was hurt, so you can't get a real good read on
Mhm.
whether or not the guy is going to be good on one-on-one coverage. But I think with D Hop, like you were saying before, big if. But if D Hop can stay healthy, if Nook can stay healthy, I like Brown more on the outside for them, and then keep more in that slot.
Yep.
And you can swap them out, interchange them. You can still use Brown in the slot. But when you do that, okay, put AJ Green out there. AJ Green showed he's not quite dead yet last year.
And he still has the size to pick those balls all across the middle. Like,
He's still 8.5 feet tall. He's still competitive. He still has hands.
yep.
So if you want to use Brown in the slot, you've got Green that can still run on the outside. But if you want to put Brown on the outside, let him do what he does, blowing deep like that. You can use that more that you drafted last year to use as your slot guy. He can stay in the slot. I think it's nice for Kyler Murray. I think it's a little bit, it can only help him. He's still obviously an elite top 8 with top 4-3 or upside. But you're right. With James Conner coming off the year that he did, and now not having the Chase Edmonds shadow, they're looking good. They could be they could be a high powered offense even more than they have been. I think Nook staying healthy is going to be a big key for them, though.
Well, and they brought in 2 offensive guards late in the draft who look to be, strong, big, physical guys who are going to be able to move across to kind of work with the way Kyler Murray moves in the pocket. So I liked those 2 late picks for them at guard this year. And you know what I loved about this trade too is that how and Marquise Brown touched on this on, I think it was on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, in some sort of interview. He said how proud he was that they kept this in house and no one knows coming, and how he requested the trade, but it didn't become this whole media push. And I gained so much respect, one, for the Ravens organization for not using that against him, and 2, for him as well. Like, it just shows how much like a classy and just kind of wise thinker he is. So I gained a lot of respect from Marquise Brown for the way this all went down. How do you feel about it all, Kevin?
Well, when I was looking into Marquise Brown, I didn't realize that he had as many catches as he did last year.
Yeah.
And considering that they had quarterback problems over there in Baltimore with the injuries and everything else, he had over 90 catches. And so him sliding over there in Arizona, and we go with if again, Hopkins is healthy, then you've got 2 quality wideouts, and I'm glad I don't have any shares of Rondale Moore, even though I like him as a player, but his opportunities are going to have to come down. And Green, he's a great veteran. He's a guy that people want to have on their team because he knows how to play the position. But his fantasy relevance, I don't see it. And so Murray, because he was very unhappy during this offseason. He scrubbed his, social media and everything else. Well, he better get engaged. He better get engaged right now. They've got the offense. They've got the players. They've got the running back. They got the tight ends. And so I'm not going to listen to any excuses out of Murray if he doesn't put it together a top 5 quarterback finish this year.
Right. I think the moves they made, it looks like, I think that keeps Murray in Arizona. There's too much there for him to leave and go anywhere. He's not going to find a better situation somewhere else right now. I agree with you that, AJ Green probably falls off the fantasy radar for the most part.
Yeah.
I think if Hopkins or Brown is hurt, he might be relevant in terms of a 4, maybe a 3 type, but
he's not ever going to be a weekly starter again.
No, and I'm not, and I agree with you too. I'm not taking Rondale Moore in anywhere I can. Rondale Moore is one of those guys that, in the grand scheme of humanity, he's really good at football, and I want him on my team if I'm coaching or drafting a real team. But when I'm drafting on my cell phone app, I don't want any part of him because he's just not going to do it right.
Yeah. No, I feel that for sure. And then on the other side of this, we have the Ravens, who obviously this was
Oh my
beyond just a value play for them. They had Brown wasn't happy and they made it work. But if I'm looking at this all correctly, Rashad Bateman is their only receiver
He is.
on the
Literally,
roster right now, and
literally.
they
They didn't even draft
they
one
did
in
not
the
address.
draft.
Yeah, they did not address
They
receiver in the
drafted like
draft at all.
78 tight ends. Now explain that to me.
Yeah, so they're going back to the whole, because they drafted back-to-back tight ends, which I saw that and said we're going back to a few years ago when they just ran 3 tight end sets out there and you never knew which one was going to catch the ball. So it's going to be a nightmare from the tight end position, I feel like, if these guys shape up. Now, obviously, to start the season, Mark Andrews is still your guy, and he should be.
He was my number 1 fantasy tight end. Maybe that's not the case anymore now.
Well,
It's going to call into question when we see how these guys look in the preseason and how they, how they're going to try to use them. Maybe it's going to definitely call into question. But at the same time, there's still no one else to throw to. So I'm curious to see another shoe's going to drop here. They got to be finding somebody at receiver, unless they're just going to take a bunch of guys off the undrafted trash heap and just see what happens.
Yeah. They do not have a good cap space situation right now. They're not going to be able to go out and sign. They're not going to go out and be able to sign Landry and Julio Jones and everybody else that might still be on the market because they have no money to throw at anybody unless they let go of somebody or redo a bunch of contracts, New Orleans style, in a hurry. And I was just shocked they didn't draft anybody in a deep wide receiver draft where there was value still coming off the board in a 4th round, 5th round.
There's a value that dropped. Some guys dropped that I was starting to wonder why. Like, what's going on here? Why is Sky Moore still available? There's so many teams that passed on him that I thought would have been a great fit that needed him. Like, there was guys out there. And then even like I said earlier, when you got down to your Calvin Austins and your Shakirs down there, like, then sure, they weren't as good as some of the guys at the top, but they're still got some skills that I think would have fit the Ravens offense in the way that they can separate from coverage and are quick, and they're not your deep guys, but I think obviously with Brown going out the door, their offense is going to get away from that deep ball. They're going to obviously run more with the whole of Lamar Jackson, probably some option plays, and it's going to be a lot of short intermediate stuff, I feel.
Well, getting every running back that they ever signed who blew his knee out last year back healthy will help them. Lamar Jackson, being a mobile quarterback like he is, you're always relying on his legs for your points on your fantasy team. Anyway, I think he still maintains his top 10 ability there, but they got to get him somebody to throw to. Mark Andrews is great. I still think he is draftable as maybe the top overall or top 2 wide receiver, just based on his skill level and the fact that they don't have anybody to throw to. Bateman looked good in spurts and stretches last year, but he couldn't stay healthy all year. And like you said, somebody like Sky Moore would have looked real nice taking over for Brown. They had a great draft if you isolate the fact that they literally have no one in the receiver room.
Exactly. I liked their draft otherwise, but what's going to be easy now for defenses are going to be able to drop in that linebacker or that safety to help, double up Andrews now. So Andrews is going to have a lot more contested situations now.
Right.
And then even more so, you can even say they can still drop a linebacker to spy on Jackson or a safety to spy on Jackson. Like, without any other threats. Now, obviously, they're going to have bodies out there. But at this point, they're going to be?
I could be a body out there.
Yeah, defenses are going to be able to single up on these other guys most likely, to where there's going to be that extra safety or linebacker that's going to be able to contain and hold the edge. So this really could affect Jackson in a lot of ways. I think defenses, at least the way it's shaping up now, are going to be able to really hone in on stopping them.
I don't see anybody rolling any coverage over to cover Rashad Bateman. That's for sure.
No, that's the thing. Like I said, he flashed some talent, but he is not going to be drawing everybody's attention. No. He doesn't have.
He had 40 some catches last year. You're not double covering somebody that had 40 catches. I'm sorry.
Even if he's their number 1 guy, no, he's being their only guy. If they get somebody in there to complement him, he's maybe a 4 or a 3 right now. I mean,
well, obviously his catches are going to go up, but they'll
have to.
Yeah, but
they just run the
I
ball
don't see him going up to 92.
No, I don't see that either. And everyone's so high on him now, which is another case of those where they're just looking at the immediate reaction of, well, he's the only guy. We got to draft him as a number 2 now. Like, no, you're gonna be sorry if he's your wide receiver 2 on your dynasty, on your redraft, or whatever style league you play. You're having a rough year.
I'm not bailing on him in a dynasty format. I'm going to hang on to him because he is a number 1 guy right now.
Yeah,
Well, if you already have him,
you
then
have him.
you can't. You got to.
No, but if somebody wants to go crazy and overpay for him,
Sure.
I'm not going to lose sleep or cry over it.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. Post your phone number out on social media. Call me. We can deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely someone where if I have, he's worth seeing how this year goes for him because he did have a lot of hype coming in. But yeah, I'm not going out shopping for him right now.
Yeah,
but
redraft and daily, he's invisible right now. At least on my draft board, to borrow Kevin's attitude.
No, I definitely agree. But you know what? There are going to be people out there that are going to overreact and try to buy him at ridiculous prices. So
find a Ravens fan in your league, and
that's right. Find him. Do it.
Exactly. All right, so we're gonna take a quick break here. We're gonna do an ad break here from Manscaped. Mr. Dan Mater, who's always taking care of our balls, is gonna jump in here and say a few words, and then we'll be back right after to break down some of the bigger picks and more surprising picks of the draft in general. So stick around. We'll be back shortly.
Fellas, have you started your spring cleaning yet? The carpets need cleaning, the drapes need dusting, and your lawn needs mowing. Spring has sprung, and the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming have the best tools for cleaning aisle 5 in your pants. Time to clear out your winter bush and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. Manscaped has the full package you need for spring cleaning this year. The Performance Package 4.0 is the only tool you'll need to keep your boys looking and smelling like the fresh tulips your partner wants. To start off your spring cleaning, use the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 to get the most precise shave on your hedges. Did we mention it's waterproof? No need to worry about watering your grass with this tool equipped with an LED light, so you'll know it'll be a major asset to the new shower routine. Clear your holes and smell the spring air with the Weed Whacker. This nose and ear hair trimmer provided proprietary skin-safe technology which helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate holes. After clearing your nose, make sure you get rid of that foul ball smell with the Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver. Finish off your grooming routine with the Plow 2.0, the perfect razor for the finest shave on your face. Because if you're using the Lawnmower 4.0 on your balls and your face, you're doing it wrong, boys. Get 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at manscaped.com. It's time to throw out your old hygiene habits and upgrade your life.
I'm glad Dan got to read that promo, and it wasn't me.
Yeah. Yay to Dan.
Good work, Dan.
That's right. He brings on the power with that.
Yeah, Manscaped is a very close partner of ours, so we appreciate.
That's right.
Appreciate and thank them for that. So let's dive into now the draft.
Please do.
And let's the way I kind of want to attack this is let's kind of go through by round. Obviously the guys that are actually going to affect us. We can obviously a ton of linemen, a ton of defensive ends and stuff went off the board. But for the sake of the dynasty fantasy football, let's try to touch on the actual the offensive guys, the skill players. So. Talk about some surprises, some things we liked, some things we didn't like. And I'm going to kick us off here and go with how Drake London to the Falcons just made a lot of sense to me. I liked what they did there. I think they're starting to move their offense into the future here and kind of forgetting about what they had with Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, and all that. And Drake London seems to be like he's in a good spot here to take on that next step. Kevin, how did you see Drake London fit in there in Atlanta?
Well, I didn't have Drake London as my top wide receiver on my board. I had Garrett Wilson, but Drake is an outstanding wide receiver. And only question is, does Marcus Mariota have the capability of getting him the ball like he would have if he had gone somewhere else? And so we're going to find that out pretty early on, I think. And but at least now he's got an excellent wide receiver. He's got a tight end that's no longer in his first year. And so he's going into his second year. And I think he zooms up the board for me as far as tight ends are concerned. And I like the pick. Like I said, I would have went with Wilson myself, but I don't hate it. I like it, and I think it's going to work out really well for Atlanta, even if Marcus Mariota isn't the long-term answer. I don't think anybody thinks that.
No, I think he's 100%. Everyone has agreed that he's just the bridge guy. And now we know. I mean, I know this is later in the draft, but we're talking about the Falcons, so we'll just touch on this. We know who that supposed next guy is, in Desmond Ridder, which was a bit of a shock considering who was still available at quarterback when they took him. But they must. I think one of the main themes I saw in this draft, and I said it on Twitter, is that it's long gone are the days now of teams drafting just based on value and who's still there. Look, we saw Nakobe Dean just drop. And that's something that when we were live on the show, just kept saying for just about every team that popped up who was in need of a linebacker, we said, well, this feels like a place Dean's going to go. And I think what we're seeing now is teams they have their guys, they have their boards, they're sticking to their boards, and they don't care when they take them or when people think it's smart to take them. They're taking their guys when they want their guys, and that's the bottom line. And Atlanta obviously saw something in Ridder. So how do you see the future here, Chase, of Drake London and Ridder shaping up?
Well, I agree. They needed receiver help before the draft. They had one of the worst receiver rooms in the league, even if Calvin Ridley wasn't an idiot. And so there was definitely a need there for a wide receiver and for a top guy. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a great situation for Drake London to have success right away, even though he'll be the guy. I think Kyle Pitts, being there will help some, but when there's literally no one else in the receiver room that's any good, I don't see anybody drawing any coverage there. I don't think London's in a real great position this year, at least, to be able to make much of an impact.
Yeah, he's more of a future for sure.
Yeah, definitely more of a future guy. Is that future with Desmond Ridder? We know it's not with Marcus Mariota. He's a definition of a stopgap guy at this point in his career. But Desmond Ridder, taking a guy outside of the first round for quarterbacks is a bigger crapshoot than taking a guy in the first round. They don't ever, they very rarely do you find a guy who is the guy outside the first round of the quarterback position. There's a reason that there was only one quarterback taken in this year's draft in the first round. There's a reason nobody else went until hours and hours and hours later. I don't see it as good of a position as say, I like Wilson landing with the Jets. I honestly think he's in a better position, a much better position.
I don't disagree.
Atlanta didn't do anything to solve their offensive line problems.
Exactly.
I was going to touch on that. On Mariota to stay healthy and stay upright. Because if Ridder has to play this year, you're definitely not getting much out of that passing game. Cordero Patterson was a great story last year, a fun weapon, but he tailed off the last third of the year or so. I don't see enough offensive firepower around him for London to be real successful early on, and I'm not quite sure what I see about the future there right now with how they've set their team up. I think he's got potential to be a great receiver in the league, but he needs the situation around him to improve now.
It's still, the jury's still out on whether Atlanta's the right fit for him for sure. I was going to touch on the offensive line. So they drafted one guard in the 6th round who looks like he was a good pick for them. Someone, Georgia guy who looks like he's got the skills to make it, but his weakest thing is pass protection right now. Then they didn't draft a single offensive tackle. So it's not, this is definitely not the year. I think they made it clear that they're going to stick with Marcus Mariota this year because they didn't do anything to help Marcus Mariota's situation, and more importantly, they didn't do anything that would be helping a rookie quarterback. So that didn't happen. But how do you feel, Kevin, here?
I just don't get when teams have an obvious need, as Atlanta does, and they don't address it.
Yep.
I understand about we got to take the best player available. I that's the age-old argument that's been going on since about 10 minutes after they put on their first cleats. Mm-hmm. And so, but if you have an obvious need like they do and don't do anything, you're not helping your team you're not helping your players. You know, Marcus Mariota hasn't played what 2 years now, and so he's rusty. So he needs to be able to stay upright, and so the whole situation, like Drake, love him, but this year, maybe if you're in a dynasty league and you're not in a position to win a championship right away, maybe that's a direction you might want to go in and take him so that he can help you down the road
Yeah.
a little bit.
Agreed.
But even like you just said, even when you're looking at him in a dynasty league, he's a guy that I wouldn't necessarily mind having for the future. But landing in Atlanta really drops his draft stock in terms of where I'm looking at him in a rookie draft. If Calvin Ridley ever gets to come back and you get to pair the two of them up, and if Mariota plays really well, for the next year or two, where however long he's there, if Ritter develops, maybe we've got something there. But honestly, unfortunately, I feel like his talent landed him in a purgatory to be able to use that talent and actually fully blossom, especially from a fantasy standpoint. Now we've seen guys, you can be a fantasy star on a bad team.
Yeah.
But it's going to be rough there with what they're, and again, we're talking about a team that has a terrible, terrible cap situation. They're not going to be able to go out and bring new guys in at this point. It was draft or free or undrafted free agent guys for them, and that's what they're going to be going with.
Yep. No, it's definitely a reset. Clearly, a reset year for them for sure. And I've now just decided. I think a better way to go through this is let's just go team by team since we started with the A's anyways. I think it's just going to be cleaner that way. So a team that I thought may have had the best draft, which is unfortunate as a Patriots fan. Buffalo Bills came in and I thought just made a lot of smart plays. They filled holes they need, and then the other picks they made, they boosted some of their positions, bringing in guys like James Cook to finally hopefully take over that running back situation for them and complement kind of what Singletary and Zach Moss kind of strengths are at this point in their careers. And then they go out and get Khalil Shakir, which was a receiver that was later in the draft that I think has a lot of skills that can, same thing, complement your Diggs and complement what else they got there and be an option for Allen pretty early on in the season. So, and then they go out and get some cornerback. Like, it just seems like they did everything smart. Like, every time Buffalo Bills had a pick, I don't think once I went, like, I wonder why they did that, or like, oh, that's like, I just think they nailed it, and they did it kind of quietly. So, Kevin, how do you feel about the Bills going forward now? I mean, they had to make moves to contest with how this AFC is just absolutely stacked now. Like, how do you think they're positioned?
Yeah, especially the AFC West. If you're going to compete with that, you need to make some moves, and I like the moves that they made. You mentioned Cook. If he's even, I'll say 3/4 of what his brother is, then that is a home run pick.
Yeah,
and I don't believe that, he hasn't played in the NFL, obviously, but I don't believe that there's the same injury concern with him as Dalvin Cook does have. And so if he can step on the field and deliver anywhere close to his brother, that is a home run pick for Buffalo. No question.
Yeah, they definitely needed something to clarify that running back situation, that backfield. Zach Moss just has not developed the way they needed him to and wanted him to. Singletary is a nice player and, again, a good football player in the grand scheme of humanity, but again, he hasn't been able to put it all together either. You would think those two guys would have complemented each other really well based on their builds and based on what they can do, but they just have not been able to do it. And so going out and getting a running back high like that, and like you just said, I mean, with the bloodline the guy got, apparently, apparently there's some talent in that family and in those genes. I think, if he can come in and solidify that spot, what a dangerous offense this could. I mean, it's dangerous already. If they actually have a viable running attack that could be a strength, if not for Josh Allen and the receivers, the Bills might be on top there for a while.
Yeah, and I think with the wide receiver position, so I mentioned how I like Shakir and liked what he can do. Even if it does turn out to be a situation to where he he develops behind, because their wide receiver room is pretty deep and pretty stacked. So if it does turn more into a situation where he develops, if they keep all these receivers, he's got some good guys to develop behind that are just in their primes, are similar to how he plays in your Emmanuel Sanders and your Jamison Crowder.
Crowder was an underrated pickup for them.
Yes, it was.
He's a solid receiver, and with a guy like Josh Allen throwing to him, Crowder was an underrated pickup for them. I don't necessarily know if I'm jumping on him in fantasy as much as some other guys might, but in the scheme of that offense, he was a good pickup for them.
Yeah, from the scheme of a real football team, he solidifies a more consistent option in that second level for Josh Allen. They have Diggs who can go all over the place in short, intermediate, deep, but and Gabriel Davis isn't a bad guy, but he was more of a deep, right? And Isaiah McKenzie had some few games where he kind of filled that intermediate role, but I think Jamison Crowder is now going to be that consistent guy that is going to be able to spread the field and open up some pockets for Allen a bit more, which, man, he's got more throwing room. It's just going to make him that more dangerous. So I do think the Bills overall just did what they needed to do to keep pace with some of these other AFC teams so they don't fall and kind of squander this opportunity that they've been looking for so long. They're hands down AFC East is theirs. I mean, there's no question.
They have to improve simply because they got rid of the anti inoculation guy, don't they?
Beasley's out of there. But
Cole Beasley's gone.
Crowder's one of those guys that every year you don't think much about him, and then you look at the end of the year rankings, and he was somehow a top 25, top 30 guy.
Yeah.
And with Josh Allen throwing to him, that's going to be good. Plus, they brought in Howard. They brought in O.J. Howard. So now if Dawson Knox goes down again, they don't lose that dynamic of their offense completely.
Agreed.
They brought in Roger Saffold at guard to help, shore up their offensive line. And then they drafted the punt god, Matt Ariza. So, I mean, what's not to like with them?
Yeah, no, I definitely like what they did. And it's another team I want to touch on here because it was a big move. There was a lot of talk about the Carolina Panthers coming into around this draft between the Baker Mayfield talk and that didn't end up playing out. But, they drafted Matt Corral at the end of the third round. Do you guys feel that Corral is the guy that they need to kind of take over this team for the next few years and be a stable starter? It's hard to say that, in my opinion, about any of the quarterbacks that are in this draft really confidently, but does the situation help Corral hit that point? And I think they went out and got an offensive tackle who was a nice, who's kind of known for being a nice, strong run blocker. So I think they're trying to preserve Christian McCaffrey in that way too. But I'd say their main pick was, how do you guys feel about Matt Corral in Carolina? Kevin, you can hit us with that first.
All right. Well, if you're even thinking about, getting him on the field, first of all, they got the offensive tackle that they needed to have. And I really like that selection a lot. They resisted picking up a quarterback in the first round. And Matt Rule, I figured that's the way he was going to go. His job is on the line, and trying to win with the first round failed quarterback will not get you, so that you can, not have to have a sign out, we'll work for food. So I like what they did there. And so I'm not prepared to say Matt Corral is going to, I like him a lot. I thought maybe the Seahawks might look at him since they didn't go in the second round for a quarterback. And he plays for a team that throws the football all over the place. So I think that he has a chance to succeed there, but just hold your horses until we actually see it.
Yep. How do you feel?
Yeah, I don't know if I like Corral there as much as I might have liked Howell there, to be honest with you, Sam Howell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can see that.
I mean, I mean, besides the PR move of, being a guy from the Carolinas, but, Howell's got a little bit better deep ball, I think, than Corral does. Corral's nice over the, in the short and intermediate game. But with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, you want to run them all over the place, I think. And I think Howell would have been a nice add there in terms of his readiness to play in the league and the kind of offense he came from, and being able to drop the deep ball in there like that. I think he probably would have been a better fit, but Corral was a higher ranked quarterback on draft boards, and like you said, they had to try something.
Mhm.
When they didn't go out and make a trade for Mayfield or anybody else, when your job is on the line, as theirs are in Carolina, I don't know if you want to go into this season, counting on Sam Darnold. I just don't. And he had a great start to the year last year, and it looked like a good feel-good story for about 4 weeks, and then the rails fell off. So I don't know.
Of course, their top option is to make sure that Christian McCaffrey stays upright. So
Yes. So
I think that taking that offensive lineman in the first round definitely was the way to go.
Yeah,
Agreed.
CMC better be sacrificing buckets of chicken in his locker and everything else because I love the guy to death, but man, 10 games in the last 2 years has been a killer for
No, he's off
team
my
and for everybody else.
he's off my first round draft board. So
if he's still there and I have an opportunity to take him as my number two guy, or if he's still there in the top half of like say round 2 in a snake draft,
that's when you take him.
You can't not jump on him.
Yeah.
But now you set yourself up for high risk, high reward. You better either
you got to build the rest.
You better hit on your first pick if you're going to do something like that.
Yeah, you better structure the rest of your team accordingly. So we're rapidly running out of time, which I'm not surprised. We could talk about the draft for hours. So what I want to do is I want to touch on your guys' teams here because I think they had some interesting draft decisions. Specifically Green Bay, Chase, with you. So the receivers they brought in. I want to get your take because it felt like Christian Watson was a nice replacement for your MVS, and that Dobbs was more of the style of your Davante Adams. But are you happy with who they brought in for receivers as weapons for Aaron Rodgers?
I am. I'm much happier right now than I was Friday morning.
Okay.
Fair enough.
They've got 2 first-round picks. They've got a highly drafted backup quarterback that they don't need anymore. I mean, in all honesty.
Yep.
And I just thought, I saw the run happening. Everybody started seeing the run happening. And I even put out on Twitter, I said, does anybody have a direct line to, Aaron Rodgers Fitbit? Because his blood pressure.
I saw that. I did see.
But when everything was said and done, they got 2 great picks. You can't go wrong picking Georgia's defense.
Yep.
And if they can, really pump that defense up to be one of those feared Seattle types, Baltimore types that we've seen in the past with Aaron Rodgers and whoever he's throwing to. But Christian Watson is the kind of receiver that I like. He's big, but he's fast.
Yep.
He's not some big lumbering guy. He's not a tight end light. I'm not typically one that likes the smaller receivers. Which is ironic because I'm 5'5", but I thought he looks like he'll fit what they want to do really well. I think he really does look like a possible number 1 type guy on the outside. Alan Lazard as your number 1, which it was going to be. He's a good player. He's been a solid player for them. He's been a very big surprise for them, but they needed that guy who can be the true number 1. And I think Watson fills that. Dobb, when they picked him up, I found it interesting that they actually had him comped to Davante Adams in terms of his playing style and physicality and his size that way. And, I'm a Packer fan. I was not a big Davante Adams fan till about midway through his 4th season or so. He dropped a lot of balls his first 2 years. Christian Watson, there were some questions on his hands. He might drop a few balls this year, but he's also going to get a ton thrown his way. And he's got one of the best guys in the game to do it for him. I liked what they came away with. I really did. Waking up this morning, I'm much happier than I was Friday morning. But I think overall they had a good draft top to bottom. And they brought in some linemen that I think will shore up that right side or allow them to shore up that right side. Picking Ryan out of UCLA, I think will allow Elton Jenkins, who was an a Pro Bowl guard to begin with. He can move out to the tackle position now, solidify that since they lost Billy Turner. And I really think their line situation looks a lot stronger this morning than it did on Thursday as well. They're going to be able to run it right back. I mean, the division's theirs anyway, but they may have actually gotten better even. I mean, it's hard to say that you ever got better losing a guy like Davante Adams, but the team itself, top to bottom on that roster, might be better.
Well, I can't disagree with just about everything you said there. Real quick, Kevin, I want to get your opinion on your Seattle Seahawks because they did not really attack the offense too much at all. And their second round was a bit questionable. We all thought they were going to go quarterback.
Well, I think what they didn't do is the best thing about this draft. They didn't reach for the quarterback in the first round, which I thought they were going to do, but they addressed their offensive line. I thought that Charles Cross was probably the second best offensive lineman in the draft, and they got him at number 9, so I was very pleased about that.
Yep.
And then the second round came. I thought they were going to take a running back at some point. I didn't think they were going to do it in the second round. And I think this pretty much just means Chris Carson days in Seattle are over.
Yep.
And then they got another offensive lineman. All he has to do is just pack up his moving truck because he played for Washington State, so he just got to move over. And so I like that pick a lot. And so if Walker, I don't know if he's going to be a starter there because, well, he's going to be at some point because Rashad Perry's going to get hurt at some point. So out of those, I like what they did. I also like what they didn't do. That's the key to me.
Yeah, don't disagree there either. The fact that they didn't reach for a quarterback showed a lot of restraint. And to touch on the Abraham Lucas, that offensive tackle.
Lucas, that's right.
In the third round there, I messaged you in our Slack chat. I said, I really like that pick. I think he fits exactly what they want to do on that offense and that running game. And
it's interesting how they address the offensive line when Russell Wilson hits the bricks.
Yeah, right. So. It's very interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they don't have the talent behind that line now to ignore the line anymore, and that's one of the frustrating things about.
Said, Russell Wilson was the best maybe ever at his position of either getting down or getting out of bounds, and they don't have that anymore. So.
Well, we're just
for not wanting to be in a rebuild. Yeah, they didn't do a whole lot to help Pete Carroll not have to be rebuilding this year. So I like their draft top to bottom, like you said. I like that they addressed that offensive line. I think they still need more on defense. If they want to get back to being the run and defense team that he's always had, they've got to step up a little bit more on the defensive side. But the offensive line changes they made will help. They'll get whatever they can get out of Drew Lock. They'll get the most out of him they can.
Yeah, we need to have a prayer session for Drew Lock.
Yes. And then quickly here on our way out, because we just got about a minute left before we got to hop off here, and that's about all the New England Patriots, my team's draft is worth. A minute's probably even too long. We should. I've never been more.
Made sure that you got to the front of the line because we would really like to see what you had to say.
Maybe next week because I probably still need some time to pick my words correctly because I think the FCC might be coming in and shutting us down if I really gave my true opinion here. And the people who are actually defending it to say they like it, which I whatever. But anyway,
no worries because that's not coming from me. Just so you know.
Thank you. But anyways, that's good. That's gonna do it for our show today, guys. We're gonna be back next week, same time, 11 o'clock every Sunday here on Tiki Live here on Belly Ups Media. We're gonna continue covering the draft and some landing spots for some of these players. Kevin, real fast, we got like 30 seconds here. Where can we find you?
Check us out tonight, Fantasy Live Baseball Show, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Perfect. And Chase, welcome to the show here. Where can people find you?
Check me out on Twitter at STTChaseFFB. And give me a read on the website. I'm writing on Belly Up Fantasy Sports and Picks. So
fantastic.
Check that out.
Yeah, be on the lookout for a lot of content coming out soon now that the fantasy season, in my opinion, has officially started. So thank you for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend.
Everybody have a great